Moving to a joint authority and Canal Audit Committee meeting, duly noticed for today at 8:30. We're past that. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Gene Nicandri, Chairman of the Audit Committee for the two agencies. I'd like to welcome members, trustees, Pacenti, Kress, and McGibbon. Also like to welcome staff that's present. This meeting is scheduled pursuant to the Open Meetings Law, and the first item on the agenda is the approval of the proposed meeting agenda for today. That's been circulated. Any changes to the proposed agenda by anyone? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Motion carries. The agenda is adopted. The next item is an executive session to consider matters under the Public Officers Law pursuant to Section 105F, and I'd ask for a motion to do that.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion's approved. We move into executive session, and we'll resume in open session after the executive session.
Hello.
I'd like to resume in open session. Chair would entertain a motion to do that.
So moved. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried. We're back in open session. The next item is the consent agenda. Consists of approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of December 15th. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Discussion agenda. Jen?
Great. Thank you, Judge. Good morning, trustees, NYPA Senior Management. We're happy to report that we've started both working on the NYPA and Canal's plan. We're presenting the information at the trustees' request initially with combined information for both NYPA and Canal's, and then further along in the deck we have it broken out between specifically just for NYPA and then just for Canal's if anyone has any questions specifically related to one of the entities. We're happy to report that the 2016 audit plan has been officially closed as of January, so all of the open audits from the 2016 plan have been issued, and we're working diligently on the 2017 plan right now. We've got 18 of our about 60 audits that are in reporting or field work at this point, and several more that are in the planning stages. We feel very comfortable at this point in time with the progress the team has made, that we're starting the year off strong and that we'll be in a good place to complete the plan by year end in 2017. We also wanted to highlight that we're engaged in 32 consulting activities. So as a reminder, one of the big parts of our mission of the Internal Audit Department is working as a trusted partner and advisor to the business and consulting activities. We're currently working on 17 activities related to process improvement and then 15 related to strategic initiatives. So it can be anything from attending meetings, working groups, reviewing roadmaps, strategy plans, looking at processes, looking at system build-outs. There's a whole host of activities included and encompassed in those consulting activities. Moving to slide 4 is the status of the open issue remediation. This comprises of both NYPA and Canal's remediation items that are open. In February, we were able to launch, with the help of IT, a fantastic SharePoint site that helps automate our tracking of remediation items, which has allowed us to have better visibility and more timely reporting to management for their awareness and to help us drive to some of these remediation items to closure. We're still in the process of monitoring issues that were open from earlier than 2015 and monitoring closure of those items. And then we're comfortable with the status of all of the remediation items presented here. So we feel comfortable with the timelines to complete each of these items that are listed. And you'll see that NYPA still has no overdue remediation items, which is a great thing to say about management, that they're making sure that nothing is coming overdue. We're still figuring out the best way to track canal remediation items. Right now, because we've only started the IT portion of the plan, we have IT-related items that are being tackled and managed by folks at NIPA for the moment. As we build out and start our canals audit plan, we'll need to figure out a different system of how to track it. The SharePoint site we'll be using won't work for canals, so we're still in the process of figuring out what's the best way to track and report on those items.
Do you have a timeline for what period of time you're looking at doing that?
So we'll figure out something in the next 1 to 2 months once we have an audit report that's close to closing out, where we've identified remediation activities that need to happen. What we're planning to do is we're co-sponsoring a project with RISC to identify and implement a GRC tool, a governance, risk, and compliance tool for NIPA enterprise-wide. And the SharePoint site is our interim solution until we get to the full GRC tool, which will hopefully happen towards the end of this year or early next year. We're hoping that once we move to that permanent solution, that would be able to encompass our needs for Canal, and we'll just need a manual solution in the interim. But until we move further along that GRC project, we won't be able to figure out if that will also be a permanent solution for canals as well. There's different address directories, so the automated notifications won't work because they've been configured specifically for NIPA, so we can't use them for canals as well. Also because there needs to be some segregation of the information. So we're working with IT to figure out what's the best solution for that. Slide 5 shows changes to the audit plan. We've made 4 changes to the audit plan so far this year. We've added 2 audits for NIPA and 2 audits for Canal. The rationale for those changes has been reported to all of you in our monthly status updates, as well as the appendix of this document. On slide 6, we wanted to give you an update of where we were with canals. We've completed the independent risk assessment, and it has validated our 2017 internal audit plan for canals, which we have started to embark on. There were no significant risks that the independent third party was able to identify that we had not already identified, either through internal audit or NIPA management. And there was one recommendation to add crisis management to the audit plan, which you'll see on the previous slide. We did take that recommendation and added it to the audit plan for canals. We're working on figuring out the majority of our methodology will be directly transferable to canals, and we'll be able to use the same manual and methodology that we have in place. We'll need to make a few minor modifications because of the management structure of canals around distribution lists, how we're tracking remediation, and a few other small items, but there will be no significant changes from our methodology between NIPA and canals. The canals audit plan will be executed by Deloitte at this point in time, our third-party co-source partner, until we get a better understanding of canals and what the go-forward need will be for internal audit. We figured that would be the best way to start getting our hands around and build that baseline for 2017. The Deloitte team will be managed by our senior director on business and operations for internal audit. So there will be someone NIPA involved in the scoping and management of all of the audits they'll be executing this year to make sure that there's knowledge retention, that we're building relationships in canals, and we're starting to get more familiarity with their business models. And then we did want to highlight that we've had some meetings with the canals leadership team, and then we also went up to canals and hosted 2 kind of like coffee break, lunch and learn type activities. Again, just introducing folks to what the internal audit methodology was and what internal audit really is and how it will impact them. They were very well received. People were very open and very engaged in all of our meetings with canals.
Good.
That's all I have to report at this point in time, unless anyone had any questions specific around NIPA or canals in the subsequent slides.
Tony? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the 2016 financial year-end report. Tom Cadoro.
Thank you, Judge. Good morning. This was sent out. It's up to 81 pages now. A very lengthy report. You know, the financial reporting requirements and disclosures continue to grow each year. So I'm basically going to point out just really 5 or 6 areas where there's the highlights. So I'll point you to the pages, but you could just follow. I'll summarize them as we go also. So if you don't want to follow along, this page 3 there's in the management's discussion and analysis, it shows net income for 2016 compared to 2015. And 2016 was the net income was $22 million compared to $74 million in 2015. And the primary reason net for the decrease is we had about $62 million in the reimbursement to Thruway for canals related expenditures last year. So that's if you net, that's basically accounts for a very significant part of that decrease. The operating income was pretty much flat. I think it's 295 versus 296. We did have higher margins on our energy sales. There was higher hydro production, about 4% higher, and that was offset by higher O&M. So that kind of offset each other. The canals integration costs were included in the O&M, and we also had the pension expense went up also. There was some change in the actuarial assumptions used by the retirement system. I think they went from 7.5% assumed return to 7%. So that is an impact on the liabilities and the expenses. And if you look at this as huge decreases in fuel and purchase power due to prices, about $260 million. Most of those are washed out since we passed those through to the customers, the benefits of those. So, if you follow through on the MD&A, we disclose the affirmation of our bond rating, and we also have on page 15 here very lengthy disclosure about canals that's really basically been updated to include our 2017, the budget numbers for 2017 and estimates for 2018 forward, which we're basically saying are estimated about $100 million once you get to 2018 forward. So, interesting on the balance sheet, it just kind of pops out. It's really not very meaningful, but we transferred our nuclear decommissioning funds out in January, so you'll basically see the assets are shown in current and the liability is shown in current. So it looks funny there. It looks like you got a big increase in current, but kind of washes out. So the working capital basically remains the same.
Why wouldn't you put that in non-current since it's a one-time?
Because it went out in January. We had a lot of discussion about that. But basically, since it actually went out in January, we were required to show it in as current.
Oh, okay.
So, but it does wash out if you look at the liability. So it's kind of the footnotes. The expansion in the number in the pages of the footnotes. You go to, if you want to follow along, page 54. There's an expanded disclosure on investments. You're really required, and this following along what public companies do. GASB's kind of following along, where you basically have to have. There's a hierarchy that you stick your investments into, how you value them into levels: level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 1 is like the basically published active markets, the values. And so basically we were required to put that disclosure in for all our investments. And actually there was a change that occurred after we issued the draft to you. We had put the nuclear decommissioning funds. They were transferred into a bank common fund, and we had initially stuck those into level 3, and we moved those to level 2 in the final. So that's not reflected here. That's a positive thing. But it's all gone by now anyway, so it really didn't matter that much. But that's just looks kind of funny on the statements.
But most of our investments would probably fit in level 1, level 2, because we're generally publicly traded,
within
instruments. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct? Okay.
I think the underlying funds mostly on level 1, level 2. Level 2, a lot of times you see Jenny Mays and things like that. I think on level 2 as opposed to level 1. So, just if you go to our very lengthy legal note, we have updates in there about HTP that we're the challenging the RTEP methodology at PJM, the PJM methodology at FERC. That's in here. There's a positive development. The Tropical Storm Irene litigation dismissed the private landowner claims, and we also have a disclosure about the ZEC program, potentially how much that will cost us, over $250 million, with the intent to pursue cost recovery. So, I think those are the major highlights, things that have changed. Do you have any questions?
Any questions, Tom? Thanks, Tom.
So this is going to go to the board today. We need a resolution, you guys.
That's my next comment.
Okay.
Wait, it goes to the governor, right?
Trustees.
When does this get submitted to the
We file it. We'll have to file it by March 31st.
31st? Okay. But you need approval from the board to move
Yes.
forward. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve the year-end 2016 financial report as presented.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. It's approved. Next item is Todd Fowler on the summary of the annual audit of financial statements. Todd?
Thank you. First, I'd like to point out that with me today is Grace Katchkin. She's a manager on the engagement. She's here in place of Nick.
Welcome.
She'll be replacing Nick as the manager on the engagement going forward, and she's been on the engagement for a number of years, so happy to have her here today with us. This deck obviously was sent out to you previously, so I'll just hit the highlights, and if you have any questions, please let me know. Starting out on slide 4, a couple key points here. One, we had no changes in our audit plan that was presented to you on December 15th, 2016, so we executed our audit in accordance with that plan. And we will issue today, once the financial statements have been approved, 3 unmodified opinions, the first being on the financial statements, the second being on internal controls over financial reporting, and the third being on the investment compliance report. So all 3 clean reports with no findings. Moving on to slides 5 and 6, these list out the significant accounting policies as well as the significant estimates that were used by management in preparing the financial statements. Again, these significant accounting policies and significant estimates are consistent with what we discussed in our audit plan back in December. These are the areas where we focus our audit and where we spend the most significant amount of time in performing our audit. You can see here the procedures that we performed, and again, we had no findings in performing these procedures, but if you have any questions on those procedures, I'd be happy to take them. Moving on to slide 7, just want to highlight the one item here that Tom did mention in going through the financial statements in accordance in applying our procedures over investments. We did look at how the authority had adopted GASB 72, which was really related to the disclosures that have been included in those financial statements. And again, we had no findings with how the authority adopted GASB 72 in those disclosures. Moving on to slide 9, this is really the meat and potatoes of our presentation. Again, we had no uncorrected audit misstatements during our audit. We had no corrected audit misstatements during our audit. We do highlight here 3 non-GAAP accounting policies that we have identified historically where the company does not apply GAAP. However, all 3 of these are consistent with prior years and are insignificant and immaterial to the financial statements, so we're comfortable with those non-GAAP accounting policies that have been applied. Slide 10, as it relates to our audit of internal controls over financial reporting, we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies during our audit. We did identify a handful of minor internal control deficiencies that we did report to management, and management has a plan in place to remediate those control deficiencies if they have already not done so. Slides 11 and 12 just highlight our other required communications to the committee. I'll just highlight a couple here. We didn't identify any illegal acts or fraud. We didn't identify any non-compliance with laws or regulations. We didn't have any significant difficulties or disagreements with management, and the disclosures related to related party transactions, litigations, claims, and assessments we believe are appropriate. In addition, we confirm to the committee that we are independent in our professional judgment from the authority as of the date of this report. Slide 13, just to highlight here, I know that what was on everybody's mind throughout 2016 was the Canals Corporation integration. So just wanted to give you some thoughts in terms of how that impacted our audit throughout the year. Obviously, as you are aware, we do have a KPMG advisory team on the ground assisting the authority with the separation and integration of the Canals Corporation. I stayed significantly involved with the leaders of that advisory team to understand exactly what they were doing, when they were doing it and how that potentially could impact our independence. We had discussions both with our independence group and our risk management group to make sure that at all times we were independent as we were performing those advisory services. We stayed close with the authority, Tom and his team, as the day one integration, January 1 hit, and become aware of any issues and how that potentially could impact our audit either for 2016 or 2017 going forward. We discussed with Tom and his team as well how we think the potential accounting impacts of the authority as integration of the canals will impact, how it impacted 2016 and how it will impact 2017 going forward. And we have met with Jen and her team on several occasions to discuss what her plan was for taking a look at the canals going forward and how we can work together to so her team can assist us in getting comfortable for 2017 and how we can work together and make sure that we are efficient in the way that we go about that.
So one question that I have before you go on, and it's sort of related to the non-GAAP
Sure.
section that you outlined, and it's also related to sort of how we handle Canal going forward. If I understand what you mean by non-GAAP is what in a public company you would call adjusted, right? Is that how you look at the categories that you commented on?
So if we have an audit difference that here at NYPA is greater than $10 million, we would report it to you. These non-GAAP policies here are policies that are not in accordance with GAAP, but the difference from our belief and opinion does not raise to the level of a $10 million difference.
Okay.
So these are
Good.
insignificant and de minimis in their application.
And you're comfortable with how we sort of capture expenses with regard to the canal and our handling of that, and whether it falls under sort of non-GAAP categories. Are you comfortable with the way we're handling our treatment of the canal? I just want to.
Yeah, so I think if I understand your question correctly, so the conversations that we had with Tom and his team during 2016 was specifically one, looking at, okay, when is the specific transfer date? When do you need to bring the assets on your books? Is that 2016 or 2017? And we came to the conclusion that we agreed with the authority that the assets of the canal corporations do not come onto NYPA's books until January 1, 2017. So that's properly reflected in the financial statements at 12/31/2016. The second question was, well, you've started to, if you will, fund the operations of canals in 2016. How should that be reflected in the 2016 financial statements? And we were comfortable with the approach that the way you've recorded it currently is a contribution to the canals corporations in order to fund their operations throughout 2016. So yes, we think that's appropriate.
You're comfortable with how we captured that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
That's all we had.
Thanks, Todd. I would like to suggest to the committee members, and I hate to do this, kick people out again, but I think we ought to go back into executive session for some discussion about the financial condition of the corporation, and we can do that in executive session. So I would suggest a motion to go back into executive session.
I'll move it. Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Then we're going back into executive session. There's no vote going to be taken, but we just want to have private discussion.